What up, random rockers? Welcome to another edition of Random Rock and Roll Lifts and Reviews. Don't really need to say that. If you already knew that, you clicked on this channel and you're watching this video right now. And today, we're talking about 1, 2, 3 Kung Fu Panda. The reason for that is because after seeing this movie, and having, of course, not reviewed the other two since they were long before I started uploading to YouTube and even Facebook, if you bothered to check those out. Shameless plug. Ladies and gentlemen, yeah, this is definitely needed. We're going to have to, at this point, being that we're going to get 3 more films and make it a 6-film franchise, my guess from the way this film ends, this will be the end. Spoiler alert, I guess. In this case, the end of Poe's story. Or at least this will be like the trilogy for the Dragon Warrior, or at least Poe the Dragon Warrior. I guess, I don't know how they're doing it. But, yeah. This definitely ends Poe's story as the main, and it makes me wonder what they will do next for the next 3 films. Maybe focus on the next generation. It's not entirely sure, but before we further get into that and my reasons for why, I'm going to talk about the first film where I'm not going to be able to give you a whole lot of details in terms of the names of the characters, so I apologize if I butcher some of them for some of you fans of the movies and everything like that. One thing, it's the first film, it's mostly focuses the start of Poe having this dream or whatever about his wanting to be a kung fu master, along with the Furious Five being Tigress, voiced by Angelina Jolie. Seth Rogen is the Mantis, praying mantis. There's Tigress, Mantis. Monkey is Jackie Chan. Viper is Lucy Liu. And there's another one. I'm missing one. Oh yeah, Crane, which is name escapes me, but he's a semi-funny dude. David Cross, there it is. Also from Arrested Development, for those of you who maybe not one of your favorite characters from the show, but not mine either. I haven't really been a diehard fan of that, but it's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about here, ladies and gentlemen, for all you random rockers and realists out there, back to the whole thing, where the whole focus has been on him and finding out about this Dragon Warrior, because about them finding who will be this Dragon Warrior that's supposed to stop this one dude that was supposedly going to be the Dragon Warrior, but the tortoise, Oogway is his name, just crazy old man, but wasn't crazy enough that it somehow works. As being wise, I guess, for his age. As a turtle, like on the level of, almost Yoda, but not quite there. And then the mouse dude, I forgot, Master Shun or Shun, maybe I think is maybe his name, or Shusui. I'm not as easy as the others, but we focus more on Poe the Panda, his journey, him wanting to become a Dragon Warrior, but he's stuck working with his father, who's a goose, that eventually plays later on by 2, and trying to become, and him being chosen as Dragon Warrior from the tortoise, and they think that he's just crazy, and all in all, things wind up working out. He fights the one dude, which was an epic battle. The training was fun. For being a martial arts comedy series, it is very, very solid. And especially in the animation department. Though the second film lacks of that, but I forgot the name of the villain, but it was a snow leopard, and that fight is still one of the better physical confrontations. The next fight isn't so much a physical confrontation as it is more of a mental confrontation. With the peacock dude, who apparently was responsible for killing off all the pandas, or seemingly killing off all the pandas. as we find out in the end of the film, which was actually Jean-Claude Van Damme who voiced him, but in the third film, it is Bryan Cranston. But we'll get to that in a second. We're all after all those other little things that happened in the second film. Film takes place a few years down the road. Poe has already been accepted and well loved as the new Dragon Warrior after having beaten what's the mouse dude's student or whatever. And then, of course, gaining some level of respect from the rest of the Furious Five and now kind of becoming Furious Six, I guess, because of Poe being the Dragon Warrior. He has to, in this film, he had to learn, he had to basically stop, I think Shenron might have been the name of the peacock dude, who was cast aside from his family because of what he had done to the Panda Village, mostly because of the fact that he found a way to use the fireworks as a means of evil, like a weapon, and was banished because of his actions to the Panda Village out of fear of being defeated by it, but really only sealing his fate. That fate, of course, being Poe. And the thing about this film, as opposed to what we get by the third film, is that every time, man, tears, dude. No matter what, waterworks, no matter what, building up to it. And what makes it so great every time is because, though you already know it, even by the second time, you still feel attached to it and are still love, going into it with learning through Poe, since he's like in the dark, has no clue what's really going on. He has no idea. All he's known is that his dad was the goose and he'd been working at a noodle shop forever, and which now serves tofu, which is something Mr. Payne, voiced by the great James Wan. Was wanting to do as his dream, and I guess inspired by Poe's being able to fulfill his dream as a kung fu master, decided to do tofu with the noodle shop as well, which was also a nice little nod, which I never really noticed it until I seen the first film. I saw it in a weird order. Except for the third one. I had to make sure I did my research. But anyway, after the second film, right around the time of the second film, we find out through that his mother had unfortunately put him in this radish basket, which is where his father had met him and fed him and raised him, or Mr. Payne or whatever, because of the attack from Shinron and the wolves on that village. And after they were trying to fight him and destroy the weapon that made of fireworks, that made of metal, is basically making cannons with the power, using the fireworks instead of gunpowder. It's whatever they used for fireworks instead. And I loved how he learns how to do inner peace, which is this weird thing with water and everything, and he learns to use it with the cannonballs, and that was cool. Though the fight with Shenron wasn't so much of a fight, and it almost seemed like he was, at the end of it, Ron already seen it coming and was willing to accept it, dealing with his own inner peace, and as his own way of inner peace to deal with it, accepted his fate, I guess is how that happened with that. So they basically try to save Goemon City, which they do succeed at. And Poe, of course, through all this, learns inner peace in order to do so, especially after finding out the truth, and how he does when he learns the truth and learns how to channel that inner peace the way the mouse dude told him. And what we find out through that, and it's just, even every time, just building up to it, you attach to Poe and not knowing, and when you find out, and the way you find it out, and the way they handle it, especially going from the 2D to the CGI right at that moment, and just seeing the cute little Poe after what we've seen earlier with how Payne met him. Oh, fuck it. Waterworks, dude. They do the same scene later on in the middle of the third film, but it's not as heavy because we've seen it before, and it's the third time I've seen that recently, so... But moving on to 3, we're dealing with some villain that was once a brother-in-arms to the turtle Oogway, and they've basically all three had met these pandas, the Panda Village, the secret Panda Village, which I'm guessing happened sometime shortly after the event, the events of what had happened after things with Poe happened the way they did, I guess. I'm presuming. And then Oogway, and it turns out the one dude, voiced by J.K. Simmons, great actor, by the way, especially with, I still forget the name of that movie. I shouldn't, because it was one of my favorites of that year. It was him and Miles Teller, I think, and I can't believe I'm forgetting the name. I apologize, forgive me for that. But yes, it was, but yeah. Back to Kung Fu Panda 3, finally. The whole thing was great, because this entire thing, where we finally, at the end of what happened to 2, it was sealed, apparently a message was given to his father, which at that time, in the second film, it was Jean-Claude Van Damme who voiced him, instead of Bryan Cranston in this one, unless it was Bryan Cranston, and I never noticed it in the credits, but it didn't seem like it was credited in there, so, in the second one. Third one, he was, and throughout that film, and which was great, because he's a solid actor for Breaking Bad, and of course, 2, being a martial arts comedy and kind of type of style, and beforehand, we all knew of him as Malcolm's dad or whatever, which he was funny in for the time being, and he knows how to do comedy pretty well and handle a shtick, which was great. And overall, it was really great to see it come. And the whole point was that this battle winds up being a spirit realm. We see Oogway, but he gets all the masters that were in the spirit realm. Their chi was absorbed by this guy, and he used it all to get out of the spirit realm and then take over, find all the great warriors there, and take all of their chi. Which happens, and it leads Poe to basically finding out about his origins. And of course, it also leads to a little bit of an issue involving how to deal with, father issues of dealing with your adoptive father, finding out you had a real father, and then, trying to cope and deal with that kind of identity deal and figuring out your own identity. And him trying to figure out Poe figuring out his way as a panda, also trying to learn how to use chi so he can defeat this guy. And the fight, though not as physical nearly as much as the first 2, it doesn't matter. It is still a solid film all around, and it's still fun. And as far as I'm concerned, definitely maybe not as good or as hard hitting completely as it was in Kung Fu Panda 2 with certain things, but it definitely really it's still no matter what, it is definitely a good conclusion for Poe's story. Don't know what they'll do for the next 3 films we're supposed to get, but until I see a trailer for a Kung Fu Panda 4 or a Next Generation or whatever they're going to call it, then I'll be psyched enough or interested enough to see it. Overall, I'd say thumbs up. I'd say it's a thumbs up here. Thumbs up to a rocks. To horns up, thumbs up. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter either way, because it's a good, solid film, and it's definitely probably one of the only films outside of maybe 13 Hours and Finest Hours that has come out in January, though I would like to see 13 Hours, and I may do a review of that later on. We'll see what happens, but if you're enjoying your Super Bowl Sunday now, and waiting for some Deadpool stuff to happen, like I am, especially after now finding out that this, from a certain reviewer, this movie is going to be... I should never have doubted myself in saying that this will probably be the best movie of the year. Surprisingly enough for what it is. But yeah. Dude, I cannot wait to see this and review this movie for you guys. It's going to be fun. Next week, and of course, got some more albums coming along the way. Maybe doing a full discography and for Cult, and I will be doing another new band involving in progressive metal in some sort that has somewhat caught my eye, and I might talk about them. And no, it's not Dream Theater, but I am pondering on that too. Overall, if you like this video, of course, click, smash, punch, whatever you have to do to that like button. And of course, make sure you subscribe. Go to my Facebook page if you have to, for any updates whenever I frequently do it. And that's it. That's it. As always, guys, keep it random, keep it real, and keep it rocking. If you smell what random, rockin' real riffs and reviews is cooking.